You know their names. They're some of the most infamous figures in modern history. But if you look really close, past all the shootouts and the headlines, you start to see something, a pattern. And what's wild is that this isn't just a story about a few bad guys. It's about a global archetype, and the playbook they all seem to follow to build an empire, and then watch it all come crashing down. Just listen to this. That was the justification from an Oakland heroin kingpin named Felix Mitchell. And this, right here, it cuts right to the heart of their ambition. For them, it wasn't just about breaking the law. It was about achieving this dark, twisted version of success that our society celebrates every single day. And the rewards for that kind of ambition, well, they could be absolutely astronomical. This number you're looking at, $30 billion. That was the estimated peak net worth of just one guy, Pablo Escobar. And you have to understand, that's not just buy a yacht money. That's the kind of wealth that can destabilize entire countries. So from the jungles of Colombia to the streets of Oakland, their stories share these remarkable and frankly terrifying similarities. We're going to break down that playbook, the shared blueprint for their insane rise to power and their almost inevitable violent fall. Okay, so to really understand this archetype, we're going to look at 6 key players. Each one gives us a different piece of the puzzle, a different chapter in this playbook we're about to open up. We've got El Mencho, the elusive ghost of Jalisco. Kun Sa, the so-called opium king, who somehow got away with it all. Felix Mitchell, the guy who literally wrote the rule book for modern American street gangs. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the lord of the skies, who basically built an airline just for cocaine. Griselda Blanco, the ruthless Black Widow of Miami. And of course, Pablo Escobar, the most notorious of them all. And believe it or not, each one of their stories starts in pretty much the exact same place. So, where does a story like this begin? Well, the first chapter of the playbook is almost always identical. It starts in a world with 0 options, a world where you're basically sentenced to a life of poverty from the day you're born. And this just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got El Mencho in Mexico, born on a dirt floor guarding weed fields when he was just 14. On the right, Kun Sa in Burma, an orphan by age 5, starting his first armed gang at 16. The names and places are different, but the story is exactly the same. It's a dead end. And that's the crucial thing to get here. For them, a life of crime wasn't just a choice. It was an invention. They took all the ambition that might have made them a CEO or an entrepreneur in another life, and they poured it into the only industry that was hiring. But, going from petty crime to running a global empire, that takes more than just desperation. This next phase is all about logistics, innovation, and an absolutely terrifying capacity for violence. It's about writing the rules for a whole new, brutal trade. Let's just take Griselda Blanco's operation. I mean, look at this. It's basically a Fortune 500 business plan. You source the product, you innovate the shipping methods, custom lingerie, genius, you build your distribution network, and then you use absolute brutality as your mergers and acquisitions department. And the innovation could be just breathtaking. This guy, Amado Carrillo Fuentes, wasn't just some drug trafficker. He was a logistics visionary. He didn't mess around with small planes. No, he bought a whole fleet of actual Boeing 727s. That's why they called him the Lord of the Skies. And that's the kind of big picture thinking that separates a street dealer from a true kingpin. Because the end goal here is always total, absolute domination. At his peak, Pablo Escobar wasn't just in the cocaine market, he was the cocaine market. This chart says it all. His Medellin cartel supplied 80% of the entire world's cocaine. Just think about that for a second. 4 out of every 5 lines of coke on the planet came from him. But holding on to that kind of dominance is only possible through pure, uncut terror. There can be no lines you won't cross. When one of Griselda Blanco's assassins accidentally killed a toddler, she wasn't horrified. She was actually glad. One less witness. That chilling logic, that's the engine that keeps these empires running. But here's the thing about empires built on fear. They are incredibly unstable. The final chapter in the playbook is always the same. It's the fall. Doesn't matter how powerful, how rich, or how untouchable they seem, the reign always ends. And this is the final accounting. A shootout on a rooftop for Escobar, an assassination for Blanco, a prison stabbing for Mitchell. For most of them, the end is just as violent as their lives were. But then you get to the exception that proves the rule. Kun Sa. He died of old age at 73. A peaceful death surrounded by his millions. And that's the real kicker here. The fall is a certainty, but justice? That's a total lottery. Amado Carrillo Fuentes dies, or maybe he just vanished, on a surgeon's table trying to get a new face. Kun Sa cuts a deal with the government and just retires. Their empires crumbled, sure, but they managed to escape the bill. So, the kingpin is gone. The war is won, right? Well, this is where the story gets really complicated. Because taking out the king often creates this massive power vacuum, and it leaves behind a shadow that can be far, far worse than the man himself. Criminologists actually have a name for it, and it was coined after what happened in Oakland, the Felix Mitchell paradox. It's this completely counterintuitive idea. When you remove the single stabilizing force of one ruthless leader, the violence doesn't stop, it explodes. And that's exactly what happened on the ground. See, when Mitchell was in charge, he controlled everything. His rules, as brutal as they were, brought a kind of order. Once he was gone, that order just shattered. Dozens of smaller, way more reckless gangs went to war over his territory, and the streets of Oakland just burned. And this wasn't a one-time thing. We saw the exact same pattern in Colombia. The whole world celebrated when Pablo Escobar was finally killed. The Medellin cartel fell apart. But did people stop doing cocaine? Nope. The trade didn't end. It just fractured, spreading like a cancer into all these new, smaller, harder-to-track groups. You cut off the head of the snake, and 10 more grow in its place. Which leaves us with this fundamental, really unsettling question. The Kingpin playbook, it shows us how these figures rise and fall with this stunning predictability. But the paradox they leave behind, it challenges everything we think we know about how to fight them.